Hello and welcome to the December update from Theme Park. Lots been happening this month, which includes speaker upgrades to 2 of my new Bachmann locos, a long overdue retaining wall update, a smouldering Class 37, and last, but certainly not least, I'll be looking at the all-new Bachmann Class 47 in deluxe trim. I hope you enjoy watching this update, and remember, you can support my channel by clicking on the like and subscribe icons and posting in the comments section below. If you want to access other downloads from Theme Park, click on the icon at the bottom right hand side of the screen to access my channel where all my previous content can be viewed. In the meantime, enjoy the video. Back in the autumn I picked up this brand new Class 20 from Bachmann, and it's one of their newly tooled Class 20s. It's a sound fitted one from the factory, and whilst the sound file is really good, I feel it's a wee bit underpowered with regard to the speaker. What I'm going to do in this video is I'm going to replace them and upgrade them with speakers from Rhodes and Rails. I'll put the link to the website in the description below. I'll give you a before with the standard speaker in it, and then I'll give you an after with the upgraded speakers, and we'll see if it's any improvement. Before I remove the body, I'm just going to point out a couple of things with the Bachmann 20 that I've got. I've not fitted any of the buffer beam detail. The reason for that is it's going to work in a pair with my current Class 20, which works out perfectly actually, because that Class 20 has not got any lights, and that'll be the tailing loco, so it doesn't need its lights on anyway. However, when I eventually get another new tool, Bachmann 20 in a BR blue, hopefully a Scottish variant at some point. The one they're bringing out just now is a Tinsley based loco, and the configuration and the livery is from the kind of late 70s, so not really in my era, so I'm not going to bother with that one. But Bachmann did say well at the beginning when they were doing this new tool that Scottish variants will be coming along at some point, so I'll hold off for that. I'm in no rush. Okay, body removal is a dawdle. There is a screw just under the coupling there to hold the loco. This mini screwdriver I got from Rhodes and Rails, and it's perfect for Bachmann screws. There's another screw at the other end. The cradle that I'm holding it in is a Pico servicing cradle. I've had it for years, and it's always handy for keeping a loco secure as I'm working on it. Okay, that's the 2 screws out of place there. Turn the loco over, and the body just simply removes. Obviously you've got the wires going there to the lighting. Watch you don't break them, but you can unplug these sockets on the motherboard there. This is the standard sugar cube Bachmann use in their locomotives now. It was the same in the Class 158, and it'll be the same in the Class 24, which I'm upgrading as well. To get at the speaker, you've actually got to unscrew it from underneath this kind of circuit board. So you have to unscrew the circuit board, turn it over, and then remove the speaker that way. A bit of a faff, but you know, it's going to improve the sound of the loco, so it's worth the hassle. I often film myself taking a loco apart, regardless if I'm putting a video on YouTube. This is kind of basically to remind me where certain things go. And it's always handy to do that. I take photographs and even do a wee video speaking to myself to say, right, take the screw out here, do this, do that. It's a bit of a reminder. Must be an age thing. These are tiny screws. I see this little screwdriver from Rhodes and Rails is perfectly suited to removing them. It was really cheap as well. Got it a while back. Good thing about Richard down at Rhodes and Rails, I ordered these speakers on Friday about lunchtime, and they arrived yesterday morning, so less than 24 hours. That's customer service. Right, that's the speaker removed now. You can see the tiny little sugar cube speaker there. It actually connects with the circuit board there. These 2 pickup tabs connect with the two pickups on the bottom of the sugar cube, and when that's screwed in place they make contact, and that's how it works. It's simple as that. It's actually a very good design by Bachmann. There's no additional wires required, additional soldering, so it is easy to assemble from their point of view, and also take off and upgrade from the modeler's point of view. Okay, it's now down to deciding what speaker to use. You've kind of got two options for this. You've got the 20mm by 20mm by 7mm, and you can fit two of those in there quite happily. Or you've got the slightly larger 25 by 25 by 7mm, which also fits in the class. What I'm going to do is I'm going to solder that wire to the pads, and I'm going to do the same with this, so it's almost it's what's in parallel circuit. Okay, and if you have any questions when you do the new speakers, what to choose, how to do it, just give Roads and Rails a shout, and they're very helpful with getting back to you on their chat system, or I'm sure you could phone them up as well. When you buy a speaker from Roads and Rails, the wires on the speakers come pre-tinned, which makes installation really quick and simple. However, in this case I've had to trim the wires, so what I've done is I've bared the end of the wires and given them a bit of liquid flux, and then in the case of the red one here, I've twisted them together. As long as you go red to red, black to black, you'll not have a problem with obviously joining speakers in parallel with each other. Right, I'm now at the stage of taking the speakers. You can see there the two black and two red have been soldered together, and I'm going to attach them to the pads here. Put a little bit of flux on there, and just attach with a tiny blob of solder. We're not wanting solder everywhere. It doesn't matter if you do the black on that side or that side, the speakers will work regardless. Okay, that's the two speakers attached to the silver pads there, as you can see. Tiny little bit of solder holding them in place. Don't need masses, as long as it's not obviously working its way loose. I'll have one speaker sitting on top of the board there. I'm going to hold it in place with a tiny little bit of black tack, and I'm going to have the other speaker over the pads like so. Before I do that, I'm going to give them a quick test to see that they're actually working. As well as the Class 20, I'm also going to be upgrading the Class 24 in RTC livery number 97201, which I reviewed along with Richard from Everard Junction in a recent video. I'll put a link to that at the top of the screen. Whilst the sound is good, what I found out during the comparison with the Sutton Class 24 was that the Bachmann version was a bit underpowered with regard to the speaker. So I've fitted speakers from Rhodes and Rails. I'll give you a before and an after to let you make up your mind as to if the Rhodes and Rails speaker has given it a bit of a meatier and louder sound than the standard Bachmann Sugar Cube. That's both locos now had their speaker upgrade. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. I've not brought you an update on the retaining wall project for quite some time now. I've been beavering away at this actually since the late summer. I've got 37 arches, plain sections, tunnel surrounds, and also associated buttresses and parapet walls and parapet wall infills. You'll see there the 6 rectangles there, they've got brick infills that go in them as well. We're looking at well over 350 parts, so it's taken me a long time and a lot of resources to get to this stage. What I started with is I primed the whole lot in just a Humbrol acrylic primer, and then I think that took about 8 or 9 cans, and then what I did was I spent the one day, it was almost a whole day, airbrushing the whole lot in Precision Engineers Blue Brick. I think I was in the shed for about 8 or 9 hours off and on, just getting the whole thing, all the associated parts sprayed. I did it all individually. Okay, I'll explain why in a moment. Then what I did was I started the long and laborious process of adding the mortar wash into the actual gaps between the bricks. Now, what I used for this is Humbrol 01, they're 14ml enamel tinlets, and I went through I think about 16 of those. I brush it on almost neat, tiny little bit thinner in it, and then let it sit for maybe 5-6 minutes before wiping it off with a kitchen towel dampened with enamel thinners. Now I went through a litre of thinners and 3 of jumbo kitchen towels, so you know this has cost me an absolute fortune. After that was dry, and that, by the way, that wasn't fun. With MDF it's quite a deep you know, mortar lines, so it sometimes required 2 or 3 applications of the mortar wash. So that took hours. After that had dried, I went over the whole lot with a mixture of Engineer's Blue Brick and Humbrol 32, basically dry brushing the whole surface with the Engineer's Blue and then patching in some of the Humbrol Dark Grey, just to kind of give that varied patchy appearance. Now the camera is lightening it a little bit, but there are various tones there in the brickwork. You don't obviously want the entire area being exactly the same. There's also areas where there's a little bit more mortar than other patches. I did this deliberately to give the variation. Obviously the mortar would be maybe worn away in some parts and more abundant in others. Now the paint's pretty much finished. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to move on to the weathering phase, and in that phase I'm going to use Tamiya Weathering Masters, which is a kind of clay powder, and that adheres really well to the painted surfaces to give some streaking, some white staining around the brick, and just general build up of grime through age. And then what I obviously have to do is have to get the ledge, the concrete ledge, and the capping for the wall there. That's going to be painted with precision weathered concrete and various other tones, just to give the more realistic appearance. So where am I with regard to finishing this? Well, I'm never one to rush a project. Okay, it's taken me 4 or 5 months to get to this point. Bearing in mind I'm looking at about 3.5 meters worth of wall, and all the other associated details. I'm looking for sometime in February to have this all in place along the front of the depot, and then obviously I'll be working on the scenic stuff at the bottom of the wall, tying in the ballasted areas of the track and completing the scene. As I mentioned earlier, I'll be weathering it all individually, and that's so I can get into the corners. For example, I can do the arch infill separately from the front arch to get into the corners of the arch and to get some real accumulation of dirt and grime and possible builds up of streaking there as well. So that's why I'm doing it all individually. Then I've got to assemble all 350 plus parts before joining them all together. These will be removable. I'm devising a system where I can remove the section of wall, not the whole lot at once, but maybe a metre section at a time. They're going to be attached to the layout using magnets, so I can just obviously get into the areas under the depot, such as the point motors and wiring, as and when I need to. Let me know what you think of this so far. I say it's been a few months in the making. I don't want to rush it. I want it to be a centrepiece for this side of the layout, and I really am happy with what I've achieved so far. A couple of weeks ago, I had a bit of an issue with this Bachmann Class 37, and this is 37026 Loch in weathered BR blue livery. When I came up the loft and I switched the electrics on, I had a complete short of everything, and I couldn't really understand this because I kind of pride myself on good wiring and electronic kind of connections, so I was a bit baffled. It took me about 3 or 4 minutes to locate the issue, and I was helped by the smell and the buzzing coming from this particular loco. The decoder itself is a Lens Silver 21, or was. It's now a kind of browny gold colour, and the components in the middle there are completely fried. I was lucky to catch it when I did. I hadn't done any damage to the inside of the body casing. Obviously, if I'd left it in there much longer, it might have got worse and certainly melted a hole through the roof of the Class 37. In the meantime, I've fitted it with a standard 21-pin decoder from Bachmann, and in due course I'll be upgrading to a Zemo chip. And the reason I like the Zemo chips is that you can change the CVs very easily to have a playable brake function. I set mine as F2, and it's good fun when operating the loco on the layout, gives a bit more realism. I get all my decoders from West Hill Wagon Works, and I'll put the link to their website in the description below. I'm probably going to get comments on where did I get the actual driver for this loco. Well, obviously it's not a standard Bachmann driver. I've replaced them with a driver from Model U. I find their drivers absolutely top class. The detail on them is fantastic. This particular chap here is a freight driver. He's got his short sleeve blue shirt on with his high vis vest. So you can get these models at Model U, and I'll put the website in the description below. When I fit a decoder to a loco, I always run it in on my rolling road, whether it's a new loco or a replacement decoder. In this case, I use the DCC Concepts rolling road. I find they're an excellent piece of kit. As you can see, my actual rolling road here has a switch. I can switch between DC and DCC, and basically when I get a new loco, it's DCC ready, I always run it in without the decoder, and then I fit the decoder and I run it in a little bit more just to check everything is okay. I was lucky that when I had this issue with the decoder in the Class 37 that it never fried any of my other decoders. That might be down to luck, or it might be down to the fact that I've fitted these two DCC Concept suppressors, and these go at the very end of the bus wires. So the bus wire doesn't actually touch, it's not a complete actual ring under the layout, and I've attached these suppressors to each end of the bus wire, and these stop any spikes when there is maybe an issue with a decoder or a surge in actual signal. So I would recommend that you fit these DCC Concepts suppressors. They're not expensive, and it certainly could have saved me a fair penny if any of the other decoders had reacted with this Class 37 burnout. The new Bachmann Class 47 has literally just arrived at Dean Park, just in the nick of time to make it into this video. In fact, I was just finishing up the editing for the video when I got a phone call from Stephen down at my local model shop saying that the new Bachmann 47s had arrived. So I kind of nipped down to have a look. Originally, I'd planned to limit myself to the Swallow livery, and then I kind of added the subsector rail freight to my kind of wish list. But when I saw this BR blue one, really couldn't resist, so I've added it to my collection as well. This is a Class 47 Deluxe trim, and it's got the working fans and the fancy glazing on it. Whilst I'm not going to go into a full review or indeed a comparison with the previous model of the 47, I will point out some areas that have kind of caught my eye so far with this brand new model. You'll see I've got the engine room lights on there. That gives a nice view inside to the added detail that Bachmann have added into the actual chassis block to kind of give the impression, obviously, of the engine room interior. I can switch these off. I can put the cab lights on at both ends, and they can work independently, and obviously I can switch the tail lights off if it's coupled up to a train. So the electronic suite in this gives you a lot more capability than the previous model, which you would expect, the previous model being over 10 years old. Looking at the front or the face of the loco, you'll see that this one is indeed the deluxe model because it's got the fancy glazing. Now from where I'm standing, the glazing looks identical to that of the Class 47 sitting next to it. However, from where you're looking at it through the screen, you'll see that it's got the kind of fancy coating effect on the glazing to make it more realistic. Are you a fan of it? Are you not a fan of it? Please let me know in the comment section below. I certainly like it. It really does look the part when it's going around the layout. In isolation without any scenery, you know, maybe away from the layout, it looks a bit strange, but when you've got it on the layout, I have to say, I am a fan. Much has been made of the glazing, but there are subtle changes to the face of the loco, especially around the buffer beam area, that maybe elevate it a little bit more. It's just little bits of finesse here and there that maybe just bring the model into, you know, the 2020s. For example, the lamp irons are now attached to the buffers and not the actual body. Do you really notice it from a foot, 2 foot away? No, but it's there, and I'm the kind of person that likes to know that it's there, even though you can't instantly see it. Secondly, we've got new wipers. These are etched wipers, and they're slightly longer than the ones on the previous 47. You couldn't tell if they're etched or not, because obviously they're just painted black, but they're very fine and pretty cool to look at. The interior is a big leap forward. You've got a deeper cab, you've got cab detail on the actual bulkhead, and obviously more on the control panel, but it is lacking a driver. Well, that's it for this update, and indeed for the updates from Dean Park during 2021. However, it's not quite my last video. There'll be a top 10 of 2021 coming just before the new year, so make sure you stay tuned for that. In the meantime, stay safe, thanks for watching, and cheers for now.